Bit of a rainy day out, but boys are here. Boys are ready to talk. Lit up an incense. Vibes are high. How we doing?
Feel great. Always feel great. Just thank our sponsor, the Incense guys. Good guys. We get 50% off. Code 20-50. But anyway, today we're going to touch a little bit on hierarchy of needs. Maslow, famous psychologist. Just like cool shit that he talks about that I think is super relevant is just that basic fundamental structure of the needs that you need to have met to actually self-actualize and become a greater version of yourself. So if you view it as a pyramid, you've got like your basic physiological needs, then you have your need for safety, you have your need for love, you have your need for esteem, and then at the top of the pyramid is actual self-actualization where you've become the highest part of yourself. So I think we can all look at this in a very simple lens as when we're training clients at the gym or you're doing things for yourself, when you don't have your basic physiological needs met, it's going to be nearly impossible to become the greatest version of yourself. In fact, it's going to be impossible to be loving, to have respect and esteem for yourself. So let's just talk about like, what are the things we do every day to make sure that our basic physiology that's driving our behavior and our entire world is actually met?
Can you maybe like just briefly touch on when you say basic physiological needs, in case somebody can't like fully grasp that concept and understand what you're saying? Can you just give some examples of having your basic physiological needs met? Yeah, and then we can get into like how we would actually do that.
When it comes to Maslow, he's talking about like literally your eating, your breathing, like basic physiological needs. But I want to expand on that because we know, like, of course, having those basic things met, everyone in our modern culture has that met. So when I'm talking about physiology,
you're saying to like survive, you're saying like eating enough food to survive.
Exactly.
Or like drinking enough water to survive. But you're not saying like basic physiological needs met in terms of eating proper foods to make sure you stay alive, or like eating or drinking quality water. Like you're just saying
is that like in a modern society, those basic physiological needs have been completely met.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean it's going to allow you to live a loving life or expand your potential, live your mystery, do the things that we talk about all the time. So what I'm saying is, what do you view as basic physiological things people need to have in order to reach those higher parts of the pyramid?
Yeah, I think it's stuff we've touched on like a couple times now already with this podcast, like, or not even just this podcast, but eating a high quality diet, whatever that is to you. Now there's like principles with micronutrients and protein, whatever, or drinking quality water. So staying hydrated in a quality way. A big one for me is sleep. Like even I was running on like 6.5 hours of sleep, which some people would like laugh at and be like, holy fuck, I wish I had 6.5 hours of sleep. I guess it's kind of what you get used to. But like I had 6.5 hours of sleep last night, and I had a few one-on-one clients this morning, and I definitely wasn't able to give them, maybe I did a good job at faking it. Like maybe they couldn't tell, but myself, like I was slugging myself around the gym this morning a little bit. Had to double up on a coffee pretty early on, which I usually, even if I do, I don't feel like I need to. So sleep is a massive one for me. Like if I don't sleep right, I'm pretty well fucking useless. Yeah, I think those are pretty basic baseline, like across the board. Everybody should be doing those things. I think another one is actually making sure that you are breathing properly. So you touched on breathing and breathing enough to survive and just having the air in your environment to survive. But obviously like with nasal breathing and all these different things that people are talking about nowadays and having to nasal breathe when you exercise and all this, like those are all great. But I think actually just having the fundamental like basic mechanics within your body to breathe properly and making sure that that respiration rate is sitting where it should be based on whatever you're doing. So if like us just sitting down talking here, whether you're on a light jog or a very intense exercise, all those different things are going to require different breathing patterns, and making sure that your breathing pattern is meeting you where you're at and is right for where you're at, I think is huge for just the way that people literally experience life and how they feel. Now, would you almost say like your psychological, emotional state, would that dictate your respiration more? You know, like Jake's saying, like maybe, okay, like actually focus on when I'm jogging, how am I breathing? Or when I'm in a conversation, how am I breathing? You could almost look at it from like the other side of the coin. I'm asking this more as a question to you. if somebody's completely stressed out mentally, emotionally, do you think that's going to, like, maybe that should be the first thing that gets checked out before being like, let's learn how to nasal breathe on the assault bike? Or do you think it's two-sided and you can attack it from both angles pretty well at all times?
No, I think when it comes to breathing, you need to work on the psycho-emotional stuff almost before you do anything else. Because if you're chronically stressed about something, or you're burnt out, or you're perceiving your external environment to be very threatening, it doesn't really matter how much you work on mechanics, you're still going to have an issue. But in saying that, there are some people where it's like they have a great environment, their life is going well, they don't have any big psychological things going on, but maybe they have rib flare, and they're unable to get a really good diaphragmatic breath due to that. So there's no like one great answer for that.
Yeah, that's pretty complex, right? Because like even a guy like Dad, as an example, he for his age and for his past life, like he's pretty in check. He goes for like, he walks like 2 to 3 hours a day. He eats high protein, he exercises, he reads, like he tries his best to do what he can for his health, but he's also like a habitual mouth breather. So maybe that's a situation there where it's like, he does have a lot of other things in check. He may not sleep the best, but he tries his best with everything. Maybe that's somebody that could benefit from, actually, if he was open-minded to it, sitting down and learning the importance of nasal breathing, or just being aware of your breath and then how to implement that, right?
Yeah. I think a big thing that we see in culture right now, especially in North America, there are so many people that don't have their sleeping together whatsoever, that aren't breathing properly, that are eating shitty food that they don't even know where the fuck it's sourced from. And it's ripping them away from their center. And then we're filling it with fucking distraction. Whether that's eating like shit, drinking alcohol, watching porn all the time. Like, until you get that baseline of physiological things met, you're always going to be reaching outside yourself for something. And I think that is such an issue in our culture that can be fixed by just getting people reconnected to the basic stuff.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're definitely right. Perfect example is like this week or the past couple weeks, I haven't been using tobacco at all or marijuana at all at night. And it's not like it's an issue for me. Like I'm not smoking a pack of cigarettes a day.
I fucking hope not.
Yeah. Guys running a fucking health and fitness. Yeah. Just starting a health and fitness podcast, and I run a gym, but hey, just to let you know.
No, but even if
fucking a pack of darts a day,
even if it's only one smoke a day, right?
And from like 2 weeks of not doing that, like not having any at all,
hand-rolled natural organic.
But yeah, not having any at all. I quickly like realize and think about it at nighttime when I start to be like, oh, I would like to have one. I'm like, why is it that I want to have one? Because I know that if I do smoke one, sure, maybe while I'm standing out on the back deck with my brother and a few of my friends, it's awesome. But as soon as I come inside, like literally a minute later, I'm like, the effects have worn off. And if anything, I just kind of feel shittier than I did before. So that's like a perfect example of just reaching for something that maybe you think is going to help you or like reduce your stress or alter your state.
Yeah.
But not like fully asking yourself like, okay, like last night, I remember feeling like, I was like, oh, I could have one right now. Like it would be nice to have one. But we actually got up, we went on a walk. We have a really nice trail by our house. It's got a like little river in the back. We went for a walk. We climbed a fucking tree and I got back.
Dope. Haven't done that in like over a decade. That was sick.
And I got back and the want to have one was just completely eliminated. And I think it's like, I went outside, I went for a walk. We had some laughs. We moved our body and it was after dinner. And then I got back and the last thing I wanted to do was have some organic tobacco and weed. So,
and you raised a great point there, because I see it with people that I train online and in the gym, and I'm sure you guys have seen it as well, where people get in the routine of having 2, 3, 4 drinks a night, and it kind of becomes automatic. And then you ask them, hey, why are you having that drink? And when you get down to the crux of it, it's usually a coping mechanism, and maybe they're feeling anxious or they're just not feeling centered within themselves. So they're reaching to have those drinks. Whereas like a guy that I train right now, instead of having drinks at night, he's having a sauna, going for a walk and doing a 10-minute meditation. And he's like, fuck, dude, I feel a million times better. I get the same effect alcohol would give me, except there's no consequences or side effects. I actually feel better in the morning.
There's benefit to it.
There's benefit. And like you just talked about with the tobacco or the drinking, those are all things that are going to throw your physiology off. And then once that's thrown off, like it's very hard to come back, and it takes work and energy to get back to your center. So I think it's just crucial that we understand the importance of having our physiology right, not just to be healthy, but to actually actualize our potential. Yeah. If you want to be a good husband, if you want to be a good business owner, if you want to create from the heart, it's very hard to do that if internally everything's out of whack because you're not taking the time to make proper choices to put your physiology in a good spot.
Exactly. I think a lot of the time people have the mindset of like they feel like they need their physiology to tell them what they need, because the human body is so smart and the mind is so smart, which it is. But I think people need to start to ask themselves, what can I do for my physiology? So instead of being like, oh, I feel this way, so I'm going to reach for this thing. It's like, okay, if you're feeling, or you're not even feeling a way, you just go and you do something that you know is going to make you feel a certain way. And I think sometimes that can just like eliminate whether some type of craving or addiction or bad habit, something that you're just kind of stuck in. It's like, okay, don't try to respond to your physiology all the time. Cause your physiology to respond to you. So by going for a walk, by having a meditation, having a sauna, doing some deep breathing, drinking a big glass of water, like whatever it is, do something that your physiology is actually going to respond to in a good way.
Yeah. And not to get all fucking hippy dippy here, but it's true. It's like when your internal, well, it's true to me. It doesn't mean it's true. But when your internal physiology is completely out of whack, I know for myself, like when I eat gluten, a lot of that, it always fucks me up, and alcohol for sure. Like I pretty well don't touch it at this point. But it's hard to have loving relationships in your life when you're out of whack. When you don't feel good internally, it is very, very difficult to be a good brother, to be a good business guy, to be a good friend. Everything becomes very self-centered and narrow focused because you feel so shitty.
Yeah. Oh yeah. All the focus is just on like, oh, how am I going to get through the day? What's going to help me get through the day? Or thinking about those crutches maybe that you have later in the day, like the smoke or the drink or whatever. And like, you're just thinking about those things to help you get through the day that you need to get through. I also think too, like when you do have yourself in check to a certain extent, where like Paul Chek talks about like the 80-20 rule, right? Like if you're like dialed in 80% of the time, and I would say like that would be the minimum, like minimum dialed 80% of the time. That'd be my opinion. If you truly want to feel like you're in control and you're good. But we're also not saying like, oh, you got to be a fucking robot and only eat X food and drink a shit ton of water and never have a drink and never have a hand-rolled tobacco with your buddies on a weekend. Like we're also not saying that either, because there's a balance in life with everything. And I think that if you go too far on like, I need 8 hours of sleep, I need 200 grams of protein, I need this and that, it almost makes you, I've heard people talk about this before. I think it was Brian McKenzie. I heard him talk about this before. It almost makes you like less, or it makes you more fragile. You think like, oh, I'm becoming much more resilient and healthier, and you are becoming healthier. But like, if you're so regimented and you just let any little thing throw you off, like, oh, I just had a couple puffs of tobacco with my buddies and now my night's fucked. Or like, oh, I had a drink on Saturday and now I'm going to let that ruin my Monday. It's also potentially going to make you more fragile. Like you have to be able to have some balance and be able to have some fun, and you don't have to be dialed in 100% of the time.
See, and I totally agree with you on that, but I think contextually sometimes that's not true. Because I know for like myself, I have a very sensitive nervous system, GI, whatever you want to call it. And I know for myself, if I have 1 or 2 drinks, it genuinely does really throw my shit off for a few days. So like, it's not about being too neurotic about it. It's just genuinely, if I have those drinks, I'm really out of whack for a few days and don't feel good at all. So it's just, for me, the trade-off isn't worth it.
Yeah. I mean, everybody's going to respond to different things differently. So like, whereas you could have 2 drinks and feel completely out of whack for like a couple of days because of the gut issues that you've like had in the past and whatnot, there's plenty of people out there that can have 1 or 2 drinks every so often, as long as like they're in control of it and the alcohol is not controlling them. They decide to have 1 or 2 drinks. They have a good time. They wake up the next day. They still feel amazing and they go about their day as if they would if they didn't have the drink.
Yeah, like
right?
I think what we're getting at here is making conscious decisions.
Yeah, it's about being in control and not allowing things to control you. Being in control on either end of the spectrum. Because sure, the drinking one, whatever, I'll give you that. But like, then there's some people that are like, if I don't get 8 hours of sleep on my fucking memory foam mattress with my personal pillow that I use every night, if I don't start my Strava every fucking walk, hike, run, bike ride I do, if I don't start my Fitbit before the workout, I feel fucked.
Yeah.
And so there does come a point where like you're still being controlled by something. You're being controlled, even though you may think like, oh, these are healthy patterns. These are good patterns. At the end of the day, you're still being controlled. Like the pendulum is going either one direction or the other.
And you're putting an insane amount of unnecessary stress on yourself. Like if you're one of those people that thinks you literally need to nail every fucking thing every day, good luck.